first got me into poetry. My earliest memory of poetry was writing a rhyme, a funny rhyme in school, secondary school. I think I was very different from the other kids because I'd went away, I'd lived away, I'd come back. I wasn't like them, they knew that. And they used to tease me. And I was kind of alone a lot and bullied sometimes. And I figured, what have I got? What can I do? What can I impress them with? You know, what can I entertain and make myself likable with? My early memories of poetry was writing a little rhyme, kind of taking a mickey out of myself. And this is in the class, and I remember reading it out and passing it around, and everyone thought it was funny, and everyone was laughing. And that was my earliest memory of me writing something poetic. And from there, I guess I carried on writing. And I guess it was because it then was something valuable, something I could use. It could get me out of trouble. That's my earliest memory. There could have been earlier times, but that's one that stands out because they stopped bullying me after that. You know, I was bullied until poetry. That's my earliest memory of poetry and spoken word. That's what got me into it, I'd say. Writing inspiration. I guess my earliest inspiration is my mum because she really pushed me to write. And my mum used to write stories, and I guess the earliest inspiration is from that. Her pushing me to write and be good at writing in school and my English and things like that. I'd say, so I guess credit would go to her for the earliest inspiration. From there I was, reading all types of books, and I used to read a lot of comics. Just the inspiration of the stories in the comics and books like Danny the Champion of the World by Roald Dahl and other children's books. And I used to listen to a lot of audio books as well. Yeah, Mother Dearest would be the earliest inspiration in my writing. How would I describe the poetry that I create typically? Poetic. My early poetry rhymed a lot. There was a lot of rhyme in my early poetry, and that was influenced by listening to a lot of rap music and hip hop. And essentially, it was rap in the beginning because I was with a rap group early on, and I would go around and we'd perform. And eventually the group kind of went their separate ways and doing our own thing, but I was still performing I began performing my lyrics without music. So I became the poet from that, performing on my own without music on stage. It became poetry, but it was from being in the rap group and writing raps. That was where it started from. It used to be just rhyme. Everything I wrote was rhyme and had that rap influence. It since evolved into not only that, there's a lot more prose influence on my writing now than before. Everything I wrote rhymed. Now it's, it could be a rhyme, it could be not a rhyme, no rhyming in the piece at all. It's evolved and expanded. There's more storytelling in different ways. A poetry prose format, I guess you could say. My creative process varies. My inspiration comes from different places. It could be a line, something comes in my head and I like the idea of what that whole line conjures up in my mind, and I'll go on that and I want to expand on that and play with that idea. Other times could be a melody in a song that just inspires a thought. Sometimes people have asked me to write certain things about certain topics, and that will be the catalyst for where it comes from. Or just sitting on a rock overlooking the ocean, watching a boat go by, could inspire a whole thing with the sunlight beating down on me. It comes from everywhere. Everything forms the process. And sometimes I'm like, I want to write, I haven't written in a while, I need to keep the pen flowing. And I just put pen to paper, and wherever I'm at in that moment in time in my life, or that moment of the day, will come out. I just let it go, just open the floodgates. It's a question I'm often asked, but it's never one place. There's so many things you can snatch from the air almost, the inspiration for things. Who would I most like to collaborate with and work together? So many, that's the problem. There's so many artists from different genres that I would like to collaborate with in different ways involving writing and poetry. Not just poets, not just music, not just art. Endless list, so many. It feels like I wouldn't be doing justice to all the people that I would love to collaborate with if I just said a couple of names, because there's so many in all types of different fields of art. So yeah, I'll say that, everybody. If I could open a show for any artist, who would it be? Anyone I want. I'd like to open an opera show with a poem that sets the mood of the event. An opera, big opera. I'd like to open it with words and accompaniment just to set the mood of the whole evening. There's something about performing in environments where you're setting the tone of the evening and where poetry may not necessarily be part of what people are expecting or used to. And there's many, but that's one of them. What I'd be doing now if I didn't have poetry. I dread to think what I'd be doing now if I didn't have poetry. Because for me, poetry has been a saviour, I think, in a lot of ways, and taken me down paths that I wouldn't have gone down, or saved me from paths that I could have gone down, just because it's been there, both in a physical sense of where I would end up, or could have ended up, and also mentally. I think it's been the saviour. It's catharsis for me, it's therapy, it's writing. I get to explore things that are troubling me, or things, or let out things that are on my mind, and it's my couch and my therapist. Where I'd be now, I don't know. But I don't think it would be, I don't know, but I don't feel it would be in a good place just because of, life and some of the situations you find yourself in as a young person, or can do. I think it's one of those things that have kept me on the straight and narrow, you could say. My least favourite type of venues, maybe pubs. Been to a few pubs. Rowdy pubs where people again are not expecting poetry, not interested in listening to a poet. Poetry is so far off of their radar. They just come to have a drink and have a laugh, but you're there to perform, so your job is to get up there and entertain with your words, often just your words and no accompaniment of any kind. I say that they're my least, but they're also my favorite because I find them a challenge. It's a challenge to win over an audience like that, and when you succeed it feels amazing because you feel like you've been able to silence the room with your words. Listen to me! I'd say it's my least because of the fact that you've got to work hard and be prepared, and it requires more of you. It's not an easy task, but at the same time when you accomplish it, it's an amazing feeling. So it's both my least and my favourite in some ways. But if you gave me the choice of an attentive room and a intoxicated crowd who are so far from interested, I probably would choose the attentive room. At this moment in time in my mind, I feel the internet has impacted on the arts in a positive way and a negative way. Positive in terms of the artist being able to reach more people than without it, to spread their art further, far and wide through the internet, more eyes on their art, more ears. And a negative way in terms of so much choice, like walking into a supermarket and having 100 choices of what to have, which is good because it gives the audience more choice, but at the same time it kind of puts the artist in a sea of many. That's good and bad. But I would say that's the negative. But the positive overall is that you're able to reach more people as the artist, and I guess that wins over the negative because more people can choose you if they choose you. Your net's cast wider. Without it, it's not as possible, or wasn't prior to the internet. My favourite piece to perform is a piece that I haven't performed publicly, but I like performing it to myself. I like saying it out. I like the way it feels, and when I get into it and perform it, but I haven't performed it to an audience. So I don't know if that counts. But to an audience, one of my favourite pieces to perform, oh man, I don't know. All my pieces are my babies. I couldn't possibly. They're all my favourite children. Any upcoming shows or events in mind? Yes, is the answer. Which famous poets or artists do I admire? Poets. I quite admire Charles Bukowski. I like his poetry, I do. He's pretty famous, I guess. Pessoa or Pessoa. Fernando Pessoa. Quite a fan of his work as well. I guess we could say he's pretty famous too. Yeah, there's a couple of my favourite poets at this moment in time. Charles Bukowski, Fernando Pessoa. Why? Because I like their style and their subject matters. I like their writing, I like their style, I like the versatility in their writing. And I also like their exploration of death. Just life and death and the beyond. Then the most basic thing of being in a store, looking at a cat crossing the road, or a man walking down the street, or I like where they go with their ideas and their subjects. And there's so many more, but those spring to mind. I like their work for various reasons, more than I could probably say right now. But those are two famous poets that I really like. best advice I've been given, go all the way. Go all the way. If I could change anything about the creative industry, at this moment in time I don't think there's anything I'd change about the creative industry, simply because it's changing all the time, and in some way that is it. I think that the change is in the creativity, and whatever change is required can be created. I don't think anything needs changing as such. I think that is the creation. Like you adapt and you change and you evolve and you navigate. You slow down and you speed up and you crash and you go where you want to go with it. Just like the water. It's like the sea, you know? The sea is the art. It goes where it wants to go. What's next for me? The next book. The next book is what's next for me. And after that, the next one. May the writing continue. I like that what's next is always uncertain, changeable. It's fluid and changeable. I'm working on my next book, which is pretty ready. That will be book number 9. That will be my 9th book. That may change. It will change. Ask me again and then it'll be the 10th one. Thank you for hanging out with me today here in Torquay on the mountain. Hope you've enjoyed our little talk, our poetic discussion.